the stage wise what is required to be done. Now in both the cases when there is a right of, or rather in all the cases which I was discussing with Paresh Bhai over a cup of tea, one sentence which you will often find under every clause and which is a logic. Appreciate this. Whenever you have to write off or reduce the amount, whatever is that, the clause reads that exporter has got an obligation to return the incentive what you have taken. We all are aware that exporter has got incentives. You have to return, and which is quite logical. If you have not got the foreign exchange, you pay back that incentive is also on a pro rata basis. So what generally people will do it, they will calculate. I can show you the way where you don't require to repay. So for that you should have a little knowledge about incentives. There are total 12 different types of the incentives are there. First one, the one which is called duty drawback, which is the Ministry of Finance, handled by Customs. Customs, I am too sure you all must be knowing, the department who gives you cust. That's a custom. Most famous for the harassment, that's a department. Okay, so they give you a duty drawback. Their duty drawback is a system or a scheme whereby the moment you export, even if you don't realize the payment, it is credited. So logically you have to pay it back. Now I'll tell you the situation where you don't need to pay. How? Just pay. This is slightly a fine tuning of it. This duty drawback has got a 3 bases: ad valorem, according to value, quantity, and a number. 60% items, there are total 6,800 items in the drawback rate schedule, AIR. 60% of the items are value based. That is 10%, like ready-made garment 6%. You export 100, you get 6. That's what it is. Balance are on weight basis. If I am exporting a brass flower vase, per kg I get 45 rupees. So it's on kg basis, not on value basis. And there are 3 products like a cigarettes, razor blade, and video cassettes. They are on number basis. How many pieces? Like cigarette is a 10,000 cigarettes. Okay, these are the 3 bases. Now let us take one example. Ready-made garment. I have exported ready-made garment for 100 rupees. 6% is a drawback. I have received 80% of this. Obviously, I have to refund that balance 20%, non-realized on a pro rata basis. I have to return that drawback to this. Interesting. You have to pay interest also on that. So it's not interesting, honestly. So you have to pay the duty drawback refund along with the 18% interest thereon from the date your account is credited till the date you give it over there. This is logical and acceptable. Suppose you are exporting a brass flower vase which is on kg basis and your realization has got shortfall. But if there is no restrictions as to the per kg, then since you have received the less amount but your basis of the drawback was on kg basis, you are not required to refund it because that many kgs you have already exported it. Are you getting it? I repeat. Duty drawback are on 3 bases. Value you have to refund. Weight you need not require because it is on the linked with your weight, not with the value. So you have exported 1 kg of the brass, then 45 kg what you are getting it. Still export of brass still remains there. Realization is valuation is a different. You need not require to. I'll give you a third interesting example. Stainless steel utensils. There it is a value, but there is a value cap. So value cap is 160 rupees per kilo. Your export is 800 rupees a kilo. Your after less realization it becomes 750. Still it is with the value cap. You need not require to do it. So in other words, you need to do the calculations before you come to the conclusion. Your banker will not understand this, honestly speaking. You have to do the Excel sheet, you have to explain to them, you have to take it understanding, and then that will work. Second aspect, these are one. There are 10 different export promotion scheme which is handled by, which is the Ministry of Commerce, but handled by DGFT, Directorate General Foreign Trade, what we call licensing authority, one we call regional authorities. Now here, as per the FEMA guideline, they said that you have to obtain a certificate that you have returned these incentives. I still fail to understand how it is operated because truly speaking almost all the incentive today, except that earlier DPP which was there, today it is post-realization. So if I have not realized, there is no room or a scope or a position that I can avail the benefits. So the situation is that the banker will go by the words that what is written. They will say that you go and get a certificate. So you go to the DGFT, you meet the PRO, you meet the FTDO, you meet the concerned officer and explain them a situation. They say that we have not given a benefits to you. So question doesn't arise that you have to surrender to us. I tell you practical way out. There is no certification giving methodology practice in the DGFT. What you need to do is that your client will be facing a problem. What you need to do is that, let's say for example, there is an advanced license. I'm not going into the detail. It's one benefit. One shipping bill is there in which there is a shortfall in the realization. What you need to do is that you have to just give that shipping bill later to that, so that later will go into the file, and that particular shipping bill will not be considered for that particular part if the goods are going to be returned, or for that the amount is going to be reduced. So there is no system of that. Somehow you have to give the letter and take an acknowledgement. It will go into the file. Drawback you have to do it. Now two more further situation to that. Very interesting it is. You are the exporter. You have a Mr. Matthew as your buyer in USA. When you have exported, you have covered yourself under the ECGC, Export Credit Guarantee Corporation, which is nothing but a credit risk insurance company. Party failed, you have filed a claim, the claim process, DGFT, this ECGC admitted it. So what they will do? Now they will make the payment to you. Now see the difference. Your obligation under the FEMA, your obligation under the exports is to earn the foreign exchange. ECGC is going to make you payment in rupee. Please remember very, very clearly in FEMA guideline, it is very, very clearly mentioned in this master circular that amount paid by ECGC or the private insurance company approved by the IRDA is not to be construed as a foreign exchange. That's very clear. So it's a clear statement is there. But the very purpose of my taking an ECGC was that. So ECGC will compensate to me to the extent of my goods or the value of the goods. But what about the incentives? Because many of the time if you see the cost sheet of my incentive is a factorization, which I have done it. So I am not properly compensated in that particular case. There is a provision which is available in the foreign trade policy which says very clearly that if, just try to understand this, in case if you have exported the goods, the buyer fails, claim is admitted, not claim is made, claim is admitted by the ECGC and you have been paid, then you need not require to return your incentives to the DGFT. Are you clear with that? Now here there is a one practical problem. SJ International, Lakshmi Industrial Estate, Lower Parel is a client of mine. We have this situation. European buyer, we exported the goods. Party failed, we went into that. 38 lakhs of rupees, we got it from the ECGC. Claim settled. At that point of time, we have claimed a duty drawback and not this. So duty drawback we have to give a refund. We have refunded it. When the matter was brought to my notice, I said this is something which is not a proper. If I take the benefit of the DGFT, I don't have to refund. If I take it over there, I have to refund it, and on that product both are alternatives available to me. Very interesting. Then we took up the matter. Today in the FEMA guideline it is given that even if the ECGC has made the payment, you have to refund it. I have a notification. I took up the matter with the FIO. I have the copy of the notification. I give it to Paresh Bhai. Be very clear that notification very, very clearly say from that date you need not require. So what is given over there needs to be looked into that by your chamber. You can take up the matter. It is very, very clear that now, as on today, we could not, we were not successful to give the retrospective effect of that, but we are successful, and there is an enabling notification is there that the duty, I repeat, duty drawback also is not required to be refunded if the ECGC payment is done. Are you clear with that? This is a one value addition to. One more thing. You have exported the goods. Before the goods have reached over there, it has happened to any of the insurable perils and the goods were destroyed, short-lived, whatever it happens. And you have been paid, claim is settled by the insurance company. That also the similar provision will be applicable. But there in that case, the drawback still requires to be paid because the notification only talks about the ECGC and not about the drawback part of it. Is it clear to this? This is how basically it works. The sixth technique which I said that the fifth one is an agent. Yes, overseas agent play a very, very important role in marketing or helping it. And they do not belong to Mother Teresa's family. So we have to give them a commission. Traditionally, I am observing that earlier this agency commission was only granted, limit was 3%, 5%, 7.5%. The last was 12.5%. Under this present, it's not mentioned that what percentage it is. So, what is the guideline? Guideline is very, very clear. The commission, what you have declared in your exchange declaration form, that is your entitlement. Because that has been taken by the custom officer while doing the valuation part of it. So, based on that, you can remit this. One further, it's a very day-to-day cases which are coming is that exporter exported the goods, forgot to mention the commission, and later on this commission is required to be remitted. The provision is giving you two options. First, reduction in the receivables. Whatever amount you take, you can reduce it out. 5% commission, 100 rupees to receive, only receive 95%, you can close your exchange declaration form. Second, you get all 100 and you give it back to Symphony is my client at Vile Park. Very interesting case. When he came, first time I rejected him. He says, sir, मेरा shipment हो रहा है मुझे 42%, 40-45% commission देना है. मतलब, who is doing business? You or your agent? He said, no, sir, there is a logic behind it. He is basically an artist. He does a lot of paintings over there. So he says that his Canadian agent is required to be given 45%. I said, no bank will allow it, not even custom will allow it. He said, no, sir. Then he explained to me that in Canada, he takes the art theatre, he arranged for this display, he arranged for the lights, he stayed there for a day. He says, sir, and mine is a product where only thing I have to change the value, it has no cost. So if that I add it up and then I do it out. I said, it's a little difficult, but let us do it out, and we got it approved. So the question is, you have to justify the justification of whatever the commission you are giving it, whether that commission is worth or that commission is a right commission or not. Now this 12.5% cap has gone out of this, right? So you have to justify, depend upon the trade and trade practice. That's how basically you need to work it out with this part of it. Well, let's talk something about the import. Exactly opposite to that, two aspects of import. Goods coming into the country, foreign exchange going out of the country. Your client, your importer client, when he makes a payment, let us say the first, when the bank comes into the picture, that is at the time of opening the letter of credit. Bank is guided by the UCP 600 as I mentioned. We see one typical situation. Your client wanted to import air condition with the RO gas inside. Please remember, it is a negative list item. So for import, the bank will not open the LC unless you are holding the SIL, that is a specific import license, which is issued by the DGFT Udyog Bhavan. So then only you will be able to do this. Now, you got the license, you go to the bank. Bank opens a license, debit the license. License, there are two copies. This is the only typical thing in India. Very interesting. What is an import? In India, import means different thing. In Nigeria, import means different thing. I'll explain to you. This is interesting for you to know. You are the importer, you approach the government, you ask for a license, government gives you a license. What it means? $10,000 import of 10 or 100 air conditioned machine. The moment this license is given to you, it is in two copies. One is a custom purpose copy, second is an exchange control copy. Very interesting it is. Custom purpose copy refers to goods that 100 machines are allowed for you to be imported. Exchange control copy means that this much foreign exchange will be allowed to be remitted. You don't need a separate permit. In Nigeria, many exporters are getting stuck over here. In Nigeria also, for items which are restricted list, they have to apply, that is called an M form. Very interesting it is. It will be a tremendous value addition to you. You are the exporter, your buyer is in Nigeria, and you know this item requires a restrictions. It is a restriction. He has to apply for the M form. What he will do, what many Nigerian importers are cheating or doing a problem with you. The moment they apply the license, they get the M form, which is nothing but a license. So they send a license in your name with your product. What you feel, that now he can import it. No, he cannot import it. Because the government of Nigeria has given a permission to import the goods. They have not yet given him a foreign exchange. So exchange is a problem in that country. So how it works, every Friday, the banks is auctioning the exchange. And the moment you get the exchange, then that exchange and this M form put together will allow the import. In India, it is exactly the opposite. Beautiful thing in India we have to do. The day, the moment the exchange, this license is signed, it is signed both the copies. That means permission to import the goods and allocation of the foreign exchange simultaneously up to that value. That means we don't require a separate permission, there is no procedure to go for this particular part. Exception is a CCP where you don't have to remit the fund. So this is how basically it works out to. Your import clients wanted to import 100 machines, air conditioned with the RO, which is a restricted item. They go to the bank, bank opens LC. Material arrives. Import procedure is to be followed up. The moment the material in custom will clear, duty is paid, it is got into this. There will be a document of bill of entry. He has to file the bill of entry to this within 90 days, 3 months from the date of remittance. Remittance will be allowed under by A1 form, that's a normal procedure. I'll take you a deviation. 100 machine which has come to your factory, you have found that 10 machines are not there. It's only counted as 90 machines. Your bill of entry, invoice, everything was 100. So what you do, you telephone to your supplier and say, sir, there is a problem, there is a short shipments. Only 90 is there. He checks up, he says, oh yes, 2 cartons are left out here, 10 machines are left out over here. This happens. So what happened? He says, look, I will send it to you. Can you do it? No. See the problem. I repeat, you are the importer, 100 machine is that, you have got a LC for 100 machines, documented as 100 machines. License was 100 machines, debited in custom 100 machines. When it comes to your place, even if that party wanted to give you free of charge, the first question is, sir, I will have to pay the duty again. Yes. Then you say, okay, don't worry, I will sell it to you on a DDP basis. That is all expense to my account. Still you cannot do because you don't have a license. So you have to go for the license part of it, then only you can do this part of it. Good. Goods exported, found defective, and you want to bring it back, right? It is allowed, but only problem will be that of the duty. So you should be very careful that when the goods exported by you, when it comes back to India, there is a custom notification 94/96, and in that particular case, FEMA also supports you. You do not require to pay the duty only to the extent whenever you are exported, whatever the incentives you have taken, that incentives part is to be taken care of. Right? So this is only part of this. Yes, the bill of entry, what you have to submit it, there is an exemption that if your import per bill of entry, I repeat, if you are importing by bill of entry, the value is 1,100,000 US dollar, you need not require to file the bill of entry with the bank. There is an exemption limit. Above this, what you require to file within that 3 months period. Now, whenever you file that, whenever you submit the bill of entry, exchange control copy to the bank, please take the acknowledgement copy of that. If you don't take it and if there is a problem at the later stage, I was having the Wilson pen at Vile Parla, Mr. Bhuta. His case was only exactly because of that, and we had the bank acknowledgement which has saved our client. So guide your clients at any point of time, if they submit the bill of entry to the bank, please prepare the covering letter and obtain the dated acknowledgement. Otherwise, if in the future there is a so-called notice or any difficulties, then you will have an issue part of it. Okay, let me take the last point. Merchanting trade. Very, very interesting. Merchanting trade and the third-party payment. Software. Okay, I'll take 3 small points. I have to catch one meeting of Tata people, so I'll just finish this. Merchanting trade. All the multinational company, they call it a drop shipment. When for the first time I was doing a seminar and somebody said, sir, can you explain drop shipment? I said, I will prefer like to drop myself. I don't know about that. Then he explained to me the entire part of it. Sir, this is something which is a new. We all know what is export, we all know what is import. This has happened because I feel that people have started traveling abroad heavily. People have started developing a content. Internet, all has helped because the knowledge part, it has become a tremendous part of it. Merchanting trade or a drop shipment, certain basics I will clarify. It is not an export and it is not an import. So you don't find a one word about merchanting trade in foreign trade policy, in the custom manual, in the custom act. Nowhere you will find. Only place you will find the detail about the merchanting trade, that is in your Master Circular on 13 or the FEMA. What exactly it is there? I'll give you the example which I have handled it. There's a company, we placed an order with a Vietnam for a bulb. And that bulb we were to export, not this bulb, any bulb. Okay. And they were to be exported to Doha, Qatar. Okay, what exactly we have done? Goods to be manufactured at Vietnam, company in India, and my buyer was in Doha, Qatar. Understand the logic? What they are saying? A, Indian party will not be called exporter, will not be called importer. He will be called merchanting trader. It's a purely a trader. What is required? What is given now over here? The guideline. First, the transaction, that is an import of the bulb and export of the bulb should be permissible. That means it should not be in the restricted list, which is most of the cases will be covered. Now, they say that the entire transaction, very, very technical it is, entire transaction should be completed within a period of 9 months. Now see how it is to be seen. 1. Shipment of the bulb from Vietnam to Doha, one activity. Or advance received from Doha to India, second activity. Or my giving advance to Vietnam, 3 things. Physical movement, my receipt over there, or I paid. This is called starting point. Any one of these 3 things, any one which happens, that date is to be locked as a starting date. Are you clear with that? Second, again, shipment of the goods. Full payment received from the Doha, full payment received over the Vietnam is a second one. So first and second period should be not exceeds more than 9 months. Within that, this has to be done. What the government, when I was reading it, what the government is suspecting, that's very important, then you will understand it. Throughout we understand that some people will do only manipulation on paper. They will take the finance will be arranged, all those things are there. So there are a lot of restrictions they have put it up. INEX, Vikrant Vinay, a student of mine, he is doing this very lovely. He is only doing this, merchanting trade. What is the provision over there? Suppose in the same example which I mentioned, suppose from Doha, I have received some amount in advance. This amount you can't freely, luxuriously use it. This amount is specifically for that, so bank says you can't use it. You have to only earmark and keep it for that payment only. Of course, interest bearing small time you can put it up there. But this amount is not a free, because government is suspecting people will use this as a financing aspect of it. So they say very, very clearly. One typical situation, very interesting, business, anything can take place. Let's see this in the same situation. My Vietnam party is stronger than me. So he says that you give me advance payment. Right, I have to send them. And this party is not giving me the money. So what is the situation? Outflow is first. Correct? They have put a restriction. Outflow cannot remain for a more than a 4 months period. So that's how basically we need to work it out in this way. It's very, very interesting. And if your client is traveling heavily, then there is possibility of exploring, because he will have a contact, and contact today pays. Only one thing in the documentation side, not from the FEMA point of view, one thing which you should be very, very clear. Several times when you do not want both the parties to know each other's name, you have to undergo what we call it a switch BL. And switch BL is not a legal document. So to that extent, this transaction has got a little bit illegality involved into that if you enter into the switch BL procedure. Right? This is the first part of it. Second, which I wanted to do, is a third party payment. See, sometimes the perceived value of the government and perceived value of the exporters are different. Very, very practical ground reality. How the business is being done. Africa, as I told you, the M form of a Nigeria. I am exporting the goods to X buyer in the overseas. What is my objective? I should get my money. Whether it comes from X or a Y or a Z, there is no issue. And I used to get it. For years together, this was happening. So it has become in certain countries like a trade practice. We have no objection as long as we are getting it. They say, okay, we have a problem in our country for finance. You are getting the money, why you bother about it? So what we used to do it, that the moment the payment comes, you go to the bank, and the bank used to credit and release this was happening. So this has become like a accepted practice by the exporters, mainly with those who are doing in the Ghana, Africa, all those countries. There was one notification. The first line of the notification, when I was reading it, I was laughing at myself. I'm reading the first sentence of that notification. It says that further to liberalize our rules and to facilitate the exporters, now third party payment is permitted. So now what it is? Permitted, subject to follow it. The first is that there should be tri-party agreement should be there. So I am exporting to X, I am getting a payment from Y. So X, Y and me, there should be a tri-party agreement, which is not possible. That's one. Second, that when I am exporting it, I have to file exchange declaration. At that time I have to mention where am I going to get the payment, which is not practical. And third is all basically that bona fides and all those transactions. And there is a list of the countries, only the payment should come from these countries. There was a tremendous hue and cry among the exporters. So on 17th January, one clarification circular number 100 was issued, wherein they say the first condition you remove it. But still that remains that you have to give the declaration, which at the moment is a burning problem among the exporters, mainly to the Africa or those who are making a payment anyway. The payment is coming from London, Singapore and Hong Kong. They are facing this is a present problem that the exporters are facing with this part. So compliance, up till now what happened, the bank I was managing it out, because I was taking care during a Christmas. I used to give chocolate and the tie and everything, so he used to take care the rest of the period. Now they are giving this circular to me, that you comply with this circular, then I can do it. So this is the problem. Last one, software import. I remember I was sharing a platform with one Mr. Patel of the RBI, our building, long back, in the Bombay Chamber of Commerce. In those days, many years before, this service export was very, very new. So I told him, sir, for export of the goods and for import of the goods and all those things, there is a document. What about service tax? He says, sir,